Hello, welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 261 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today, we'll be discussing chapter 35 of A Feast for Crows, that's Samwell 4.
And as always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you, unless, of course, you have a Buy Me a Coffee Sustainer tier that includes spoilers, then we will spoil things for you. Regardless, hopefully we'll provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes. They'll provide some additional information about the characters and geography of this chapter. How are you, Mackelly?
I'm doing all right. We just got off a fun call on Discord with the Discord community at large, not just sustainers.
It was really excellent. I feel when we get onto those calls, I'm very nervous because I'm like, what are we going to talk about?
Right.
We're just two ordinary schmoes. You know?
Yeah.
What are we going to say to these poor people? But then the conversation just flows. It was great. It was really entertaining and interesting. Everyone was very funny and charming.
Yep.
A nice group of people.
Feel exactly the same. And, you know, we mentioned on the call that we were going to record this episode right afterward. And then I called you and said, do you want to do it? And we were both like, do we want to do this now?
and then we had technical difficulties.
Yes.
It's a miracle we're still here, honestly.
So we might just be together all night long, I think.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be a late one.
So how are you doing? I know we just spent the previous hour together, but what else is new?
I'm doing great. I mean, like I said, it's because it's stressful. It's kind of like it's taxing, and I'm tired from it. And plus, it's the end of a day's work as well.
Yep.
So it's a long day, but I'm feeling good, Mackelly. I think this is going to be an excellent episode. You predicted that this episode was going to be interesting. You said it, and as I read it, I was like, whoa, there's so much going on here.
Yeah.
Some of which I understood.
Oh, you mean at the end of last week's episode when I said, you're going to want to tune into this one. Things happen.
That's what you said?
Yeah.
So, I have a little story for you. So Carson's work has fired back up now that the summer is coming to an end. Well, we're in October. It feels like the summer's still here because it's so warm here.
It really is. Yeah, 80 today.
Because she does school field trips, the summer is obviously quiet for her, but also the beginning of the school year is quiet because you don't go on school field trips in the first few weeks of school.
Right.
Sort of like get into the swing of things.
Yep.
But it's firing back up, and she's doing a new class on trees. And because it's a new class to her, she went to observe someone doing the class for them. And this person there's a sort of script and sort of like the things you have to talk about. And the pre-K kids doing the class were all having a great time, and it sounded very sweet. So then Carson, she gets to see it basically one time, and then she has to go and do it for a group of kids. There's a different script for the 5th graders who are 11 years old.
Yeah, I bet.
But Carson practiced and learned the pre-K script.
Oh, no.
So then all these mustachioed brutes come in. And she's pretending to be a seed, and then she's pretending to be a sapling.
I could just see how this went over with that crowd.
I love that story.
Oh, that's great.
When I told Carson I was going to tell that story on the pod, she said, well, that's episode 2 of my podcast, What Actually Happened, Sorted Out. But never mind the details.
That's right.
Enjoy the story.
Yeah, that's right. Who cares about what really happened? It's about the funniest way of telling the story that happened.
Exactly. I'm in the middle of some training at work about crucial conversations, how to handle conversations when the stakes are high and emotions run strong and all this kind of thing.
Right.
And Carson and I walked the dogs last night, and I was telling her about the things that you're supposed to do, And she kept looking at me like, are you actually going to do these things? Like this could actually, she didn't voice this, but the look in her eye said, this would really help. If you could try to do some of what this class is telling you, our lives would be so much better.
I'm sure. Yeah, but it's one thing to remember to do those things at work. It's another thing to remember to do them at home.
Funny enough, actually, today we were doing some sort of role playing, and I was talking to this guy from Brazil, actually, and we both had to choose a scenario, and we sort of role played that scenario. And my scenario was kind of like a boring thing, like I had too much work, and I needed to tell my boss that I had too much on my plate.
Sure, yeah.
Sort of easy. He chose the personal one. He chose
more fun.
Spouse comes home and is on the phone to work and sort of eats dinner and then goes back to work and doesn't spend any time with you. And we both did it. We both did the sort of like techniques we were being taught. And both of us, it sounded really good. I mean, like, you know, I was like, honestly, Luis, she's not going to leave you. That's good. Go with that. You know, that's how to do it. But we commented, we had a few minutes extra at the end of this session, and I said, don't you think that it sounded more plausible speaking that way in a professional setting,
right,
than into your wife? Because you sound like a management training course,
right?
But you're speaking to your spouse.
Yeah, it's a whole different, whole different everything. Yeah,
you couldn't argue that it would be like if the spouse listened and went, "Okay, good. I'm glad we're having this conversation." That it would help. But it would sound so false coming out of your mouth, I think.
Yeah, I could see that. Yep. I could definitely see that.
All right. Well, anyway, we've got a lot to talk about. It's not that long of a chapter, but there's so much juice here that we've got plenty to talk about. So Let's get down to business. How did we leave Samwell Tarly? Last we saw of Sam, he was desperately short of money in Bravos. Gilly remained inconsolable over the baby swap. Aemon was very much dying of old age and fixating on news of dragons. Furthermore, they have nothing to eat or heat their rent arrears room. Their black brother Darian was making enough for everyone, but squandering it on himself. Eventually, Sam and Darian, came to blows. Sam ended up in a canal from where he was plucked by a summer islander by the name of Xhondo, who had news of the dragons. Mackelly, why don't we give the summary of this one?
Okay. Well, good news. Sam, Gilly, and Maester Aemon have escaped Bravos aboard the Cinnamon Wind, a ship out of the Summer Isles. Unfortunately, sad news, Maester Aemon has succumbed to old age. Sam fights back tears as he eulogizes the old man, whose life story, even summarized for an audience who barely knew him, represents a man at the fulcrum of history for more than a century.
A great man, Maester of the Citadel, brother of the Night's Watch, named for a hero who died too young, served a dozen Lord Commanders of the Night's Watch, counselled kings and could have been one himself. Aemon Targaryen, blood of the dragon. The Summer Islanders barely knew him, but they respected their elders and celebrate their dead. Sam's speech is attended with solemnity and consideration. Sam dissolves into tears on Gilly's shoulder, her own eyes moist. The air is warm off the coast of Dorne, and a cask of spiced rum is tapped for the occasion. Sam is sore all over, but the rum certainly helps.
Initially, after hearing Xhondo's news of Dany and her dragons, Aemon rallied and made Sam believe he could attempt the journey to Old Town. Aemon spoke of the prince who was promised, Rhaegar, born into smoke from the fire at Summerhall that attended his birth, salt tears for those who died. Rhaegar believed it too, until he was persuaded that it would be in fact his own son, a comment over King's Landing on the night that baby Aegon was conceived. But Maester Aemon thinks the translation was imprecise. Dragons changed gender, so the original prophecy could have meant either. It was a princess that was promised, Daenerys.
She was born amidst smoke and salt, and the return of dragons is the proof. He wanted to go find her. His spurt of energy saw him walk the plank onto the Cinnamon Wind. Sam had secured passage by giving the captain, Kuhura Mo, all the books that were intended for Old Town. Sam is distraught about this, but Mo wants the coin that the Citadel will pay for the books, so they'll get there anyway. After bartering, Sam was down to his boots, clothes, and the broken horn that Jon gave him.
The last time Maester Aemon left his bed was Pentos, where they waited out a storm. His wits seemed to come and go. He beseeched Sam to convince the Citadel of the danger in the north. Tell them of my brother's dream. Melisandre has misread the signs. Stannis has the blood of the dragon. We all wanted to believe, but Melisandre has it wrong. And she knows the sword is wrong. Daenerys is our hope. He wonders what he'll see when he dies. Will he feast in the father's hall, talk with Egg, find Darren whole and happy, hear his sisters sing to their children?
That was his last good day. After that, ramblings. A dream with no named dreamer, candles that could not be lit, eggs that would not hatch. The Sphinx was the riddle, not the riddler. The dragon must have 3 heads. Sam thinks the journey was a mistake, but Gilly knows that Melisandre might have burned Maester Aemon. Jon and Val knew too, and that is why Dalla's baby is with them. Gilly and Sam think to call the baby Aemon Battleborn or Aemon Steelsong, but not until he's 2 years old.
That's right. Bad luck otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
After the funeral, Sam and Gilly are alone together. The baby is with Koja, the captain's daughter. They get quite drunk and Sam helps her down to the women's quarters. They kiss. Then they do a lot more than kiss. At various points, Sam recalls his vows, but not enough to stop. He wakes the next morning in his own hammock and throws himself into his work. The books got them on board, but he has to work his passage. He works hard through his hangover and avoids Gilly at every turn. The Cinnamon Wind is a big ship, a swan ship as they're known in Westeros, so he has plenty of places to hide. At the end of his shift, Xhondo tracks him down and sends him to Koja.
Koja points to the distant Dornish coast and tells him he can swim and then walk the desert to Old Town, or he can go do right by Gilly. He thinks that Koja doesn't understand, but she does. Gilly knows that Sam has vows that cannot be truly broken, but she has lost everything and wants him for now. He goes to Gilly and cries as he tells her that he wishes they could be wed, but that he swore before the trees. Gilly makes the point that there are no trees here, wiping away his tears. Only water.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes. I feel like we almost need a moment of silence for Maester Aemon.
I don't even remember who it was you first eulogized, but
Jory.
Character
Jory Cassell.
Jory Cassell.
Yes, I remember
Really?
it well. Yeah, it was.
Well, that's not bad, actually. I mean, Jory deserved at least a word, but
Yeah,
Maester Aemon is more prominent than Jory Cassell.
yes. It's hard to argue who would be more prominent than Maester Aemon when it comes to, just
True.
all the things. And I almost feel as broken up as Sam does.
You wouldn't say of Maester Aemon that he was taken from us too soon.
That is true. That he lived a very long and relatively healthy life, aside from his eyes, going.
True.
So, but like I said, I Sam was so broken up, and I feel it. I get it. But he surely feels like he failed Aemon, and that he also failed Jon's mission. Jon's mission was kind of dual purpose. Get Maester Aemon to somewhere where he can spend his final days in warmth and comfort. But the primary point of the mission was so that he Aemon, could escape Melisandre's clutches, because if anyone has King's blood that is still alive in this story, Maester Aemon is right up there.
Yes, very true. Very true. And also, of course, I mean, part of the mission... Well, certainly what Maester Aemon saw as the mission was getting word to the Citadel of the danger from the north.
Right.
And that's why, even as he knew he was losing his grip on life, he was extolling Sam to take that message and to drive it home. And Sam, we skipped over it a little bit, but Sam kept saying, yes, I'll back you up.
Right.
And Maester Aemon sort of was like, rolled his eyes and was like, no, Sam, you're going to have to do this.
Right. Yeah. I loved Sam's eulogy, though. It was excellent work capturing the special person that Aemon was.
Yeah. How good it was, this is always a good sign. The TV show used it verbatim.
Oh,
word
yes.
for word.
Okay, yeah.
In a very different context, but the same words spoken.
Okay. That does usually bode well.
Yeah. The Summer Islanders treated Aemon with and his passing with respect and reverence, and I think it reflects well on a society when you care for your elders.
Yes, it does.
You celebrate your dead. I think that's a good thing.
And Sam wishes that they had gotten him Maester Aemon again to Old Town, hoping that the Archmaesters might have been able to heal him. I don't know about that, maybe, but like you said, he was very old and become very weak. But
yeah,
I will say if he had died in Old Town, if he had made it there and died there, it would have been a very different memorial. And I feel like the Summer Islanders did a really great job of doing their best to, pay homage to this man that they really didn't know at all.
Yeah.
But they didn't know him at all. And had he died in Old Town at the Citadel, he probably would have been given a memorial more deserving of such a man, as they would have known his past. And there's a lot of things that Sam said that the Summer Islanders probably didn't even understand what it was in reference to. So,
on that, and this is almost pedantry, but the Summer Islanders, they ply the narrow seas. They speak the common tongue. They would inevitably learn the common tongue.
Right.
I know they say the captain doesn't, that he basically only knows the F word, but but you would think that sailors who go to they go to the big cities they go to King's Landing.
You're
they
right.
go to Bravos, and it seems strange to me that they wouldn't have more language skills than this chapter gives them credit for.
You're absolutely right. Especially a captain would very much need to be able to communicate with.
He's going to be trading,
Right.
negotiating with, passage. Yeah. I don't know. It seemed a little bit. But yes, you're right. According to the chapter, they didn't really understand the eulogy. But
yeah, well, just even if they understood the words, like the actual words, they wouldn't really understand, because they're not from Westeros, what Maester Aemon being the blood of the dragon and a maester for so long, what all those things necessarily meant. And, But I am glad that Sam prevented Kahura Mo from taking Aemon's chain, and it was very respectful of Mo to accept that, because surely there was a lot of value in the metals of the links. So,
yeah, I almost called that one up as pedantry as well, because I was like, if you're taking Sam's spare clothes, you're going to want that chain. Like you said, it's got precious metals in it.
Yeah, but Sam and Gilly were basically stripped of everything but the clothes on their back, and both had to contribute to the sailing effort here. And Sam is pretty much stuck doing physical labor that he is not well suited for. He, I think Xhondo said, "You'll do the work of 4," and Sam was thinking to himself, "I'm not even doing the work of 1."
not usefully doing the work.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny that in the chapter, actually, he mentions how sore he is long before it mentions the fact that he's working for his passage, because you don't even know why he's sore when it gets mentioned.
Yes, that's
much later
true.
In the passage, you're like, oh, wait a minute, now I know why he needed the rum.
Right.
So we speculated when Xhondo was first met that Aemon might be restored by this news, because he was very keen to get this news. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. But the news, of course, was news to him that Daenerys had hatched these eggs, that it would be a girl who was the prince that was promised. But he's able to rationalize that a little bit because of, first of all, Daenerys fits some of the criteria. They would be born under smoke and salt, right? Is that
Yep. She was born on Dragonstone, where there is salt water all around, and there's the smoke from Dragonmount, the volcano.
Yeah.
But yeah, he first thought it was Rhaegar because of the smoke from the tragedy at Summerhall that happened on the day of Rhaegar's birth, tears from the sadness of those who were lost that day, until Here's something, so Aemon thinks Rhaegar believed this as well, that it was him, until he was convinced that it was his son Aegon, because Aegon was born, on the night Aegon was conceived, there was a comet seen in the sky over King's Landing. And I started thinking about that, and I wondered, does that mean that Aemon and Rhaegar were in contact? Did Aemon somewhat...
I thought about this, but the passage did not say that Aemon changed his mind. Rhaegar changed his mind, but Aemon didn't. Aemon obviously knows that Rhaegar changed his mind.
Right, that's what I mean. How does Aemon know that how Rhaegar thought about anything unless they were in some sort of correspondence? I wonder if Rhaegar, because his father was going mad, if maybe he started to rely on another family member to
correspond,
for counsel, and if maybe Aemon was counseling Rhaegar from afar. Just a thought, as I was curious how he knows how Rhaegar changed his mind about things. But so the prophecy, as Melisandre told us when she told Davos this on Dragonstone, goes, when the red star bleeds and darkness gathers, Azor Ahai will be born again amidst smoke and salt. And Barristan Selmy tells Dany something that I don't think Aemon necessarily knew. Or maybe he did, and this is what he's alluding to. But Barristan told Dany that Rhaegar was never interested in swordplay until he read something and decided he must become a warrior. Now maybe Aemon and Barristan know different pieces of the same puzzle.
So, a question for you, and maybe this is me being a bit dim, but is the prince who was promised Azor Ahai? Are they just like two different names for the same thing? Or is this just a conjunction of two different prophecies that bleed into one?
It's hard to tell because Melisandre usually refers to this person as Azor Ahai. But the prophecy is very similar for the prince who was promised. So it seems like they're talking, it's the two different names for the same prophesized.
The many-faced god and the stranger being the same.
Right. But I'm not perfectly clear on whether they are the same person or if, they're both kind of mythological figures, legendary figures that have similar stories, but are, actually, when you come down to it, the same person, possibly.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
So, Aemon mentions the fact that dragons are capable of sequential hermaphroditism, which is a technical term for an animal that changes its gender. And because of that, the prophecy involving the prince who was promised could be misleading in the sense that it could be either gender. And so he never really considered that it might be a girl. But now, learning the news of Daenerys, she fits all the other aspects of this.
She really does.
She's hatched the dragons, and that's the clincher.
It is
the fact that she's hatched the dragons.
Yes,
it's like, well, what else could she be but the prince who was promised?
I mean, like I said, she was born amidst salt and smoke on dragons. So, of course,
absolutely.
So are a lot of Targaryens. I mean, it is a home of the Targaryens. But she was also, the red comet was first seen the day of Drogo's pyre when the dragons were born, when the dragon's eggs hatched, and Dany was sort of reborn. And again, you had smoke from the pyre and salt from the tears over Drogo's death. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like you said, the ultimate proof is dragons returned on her watch. So
yeah. But so coming back to Barristan Selmy's comment, so we know what made Rhaegar take up swordplay because he wanted to fulfill the criteria of the prophecy, believing that it was himself.
Right.
Do we know what made him think that it wasn't? Was it simply the presence of a comet in the sky the night he made love to his wife?
Yeah, it seems like
I'm
it.
not the one.
Right. What did I bother learning? That's why he got defeated by Robert, because he stopped practicing, because he thought, I'm not the one. You know. Yeah, you're right. That's the only clue we have that he changed his mind. I'm not sure if it's even mentioned anywhere else that...
Yeah, it seems strange.
Well, I guess in Dany's dream in the House of the Undying, the vision who appears to be Rhaegar says the dragon has 3 heads and mentions the prince who was promised. So maybe seeing his son being born is when it dawned on him, oh, it's not me, it's my son.
But again, it was conceived. So
yes, right.
I'm not sure you do your best thinking in that moment.
Cue Sam Tarly.
And another question, and this is sort of more of a philosophical question. Does the premature death of a candidate disprove that it was them? Or is their death simply a sundering of the prophecy? They were the prince that was promised, Rhaegar or baby Aegon. And the prophecy comes to an end because they died before they were able to enact it.
Yep.
Or is the nature of a prophecy that, well, there'll always be another one around the corner?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Were they not the right answers because they died prematurely? Or did the prophecy die with them? Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question.
So it's heartbreaking to watch Aemon realise that he's not going to make it to Dany. He wants to see her. Which is a bit... It was somewhat a breaking of his vows if he did. You know, if he did commandeer the boat and say, let's go, you know, all the way to the other side of Essos to find my... oh, God, I'm going to try and come up with the relationship now.
Oh, goodness.
Great niece.
Great
niece.
Great niece, maybe? Yeah, no, you're right. What a time to do it. 102 years in, now you're going to break your vow.
Well, Ned Stark's dead. I'll get away with it.
Right, Benjen's missing. Ned Stark's dead.
Yeah. And as we said, he prepares Sam to convince the Archmaesters of 2 things: the danger from the north, and that Daenerys is the prince that was promised, who can. I don't know what the rest of the prophecy says, but presumably protects the realm from the danger in the north.
Defend them against the great other, the threat from the north. Yeah. So he goes into he says, you know, tell him about the prophecy and that Melisandre has it wrong. Tell him about my brother's dream. And you know, those are the 3 things. And so his brother's dream, which he never really explains what it was or who he's talking about, it's a reference to his oldest brother, Daeron, who was a Targaryen dreamer. You know, there has been over the centuries Targaryens that have prophetic dreams. There was an earlier
Daenerys, right?
Yes, Daenerys the Dreamer. Exactly. His brother Daeron dreamed that dragons would return. Egg mentions it to Dunk in Mystery Night in the Dunk and Egg series. But when he brings Daeron up again, when he's talking about his fear of the unknown of death, he mentions, will I see my, you know, that whole thing, will I feast forever in the Father's golden hall, talk with Egg again? Will I find Daeron whole and happy and hear my sisters sing to their children? The Daeron he's talking about is his oldest brother who became kind of a drunk, and I believe he died of a pox off the top of my head, I want to say.
He caught the pox off the top of your head?
I hope not.
He died of dandruff?
He does leave out one sibling, not unsurprisingly. He leaves out Aerion Brightflame. He's really not interested in not concerned about that. Maybe that's part of like, oh no, what if I see Aerion again, that jerk? But then he talks about Melisandre having it wrong. And you and I have been discussing this since she told the prophecy to Davos. Her reasoning for Stannis being Azor Ahai is that Stannis has a magic sword, which according to Stannis and Melisandre, was forged when he plunged his blade through the burning statue of the maiden at the Sept of Dragonstone, which we were there for through Davos. And that ceremony was a rebirth for him as Azor Ahai. But, as Aemon points out here in this chapter, the sword has no heat. It's a flaming sword, but it has no heat. So he says it's surely just a glamour. But who else would control the glamour but Melisandre?
Right.
So surely she would know that it's all smoke and mirrors, almost literally.
Yeah, but I think some of it is Melisandre believes Stannis is Azor Ahai. I think that's true.
I do too.
And then she takes actions to make him fit the prophecy.
Yeah, I think that's right.
She's creating that glamour. She knows she's creating it. She knows he doesn't have a burning sword. And probably he can get it. The nice thing about her glamour is that he will he doesn't have to use the oven mitt of Dragonstone to hold it, which is good. I mean, that's not a good look for Azor Ahai. If you
no, it's not. You're right. Absolutely.
So she's just trying to lean on the scales to convince the masses. That's how I perceive it. She knows. She's thinking at some point he's actually going to find that sword, and wield it. In the meantime, I'm just going to help a little PR. She could join our PR firm.
She could, yeah, definitely. No, I think you're right. She's hitched her wagon to Stannis as Azor Ahai, so she's got to see it through.
Yeah. And she wants to bring followers to him, so she's going to make him look as good as possible. Yeah, I don't think she's trying to fool herself. I think it's a reasonable thing to do what she's doing.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, although Aemon is right when he says pretty much to Sam that, going into battle against the great other with the wrong Azor Ahai is going to be a problem.
But does Daenerys have a burning sword?
She does, not to my knowledge, unless you consider the dragon's flame to be a burning sword of sorts.
Yes, possibly, yeah. But so you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Melisandre's just trying to make it look as good as possible. Yeah. I don't think she's fooling herself. I think she genuinely believes. So anyway, after this coherent plea that Aemon gives to Sam, it's mostly gibberish from there on. But with this book, gibberish is sometimes where the juicy bits lie.
Yes.
So he says that the Sphinx is the riddle, not the Riddler. Now, we actually started the discussion of this during the Discord server call, so I actually got a little bit of insight here that I didn't know before. An hour ago, I would have wandered into this minefield like an idiot. Now I'm going to knowingly walk into this minefield. So I do remember we've met a character called the Sphinx. It was Alaris in Old Town in the prologue of Feast for Crows.
Yep.
It's hard to imagine why he would be important to the story as a whole. He was barely important to the one chapter he's appeared in.
You're right.
But Carter, one of the Discord members, made the point that if someone is called the Sphinx, then the concept of the Sphinx exists in this world. And so this is perhaps a reference to the other thing that is the Sphinx, the thing that the Sphinx is named after.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have seen statues of Sphinxes in this story. In fact, at the Citadel, there's statues of Sphinxes. I believe at the Red Keep there is as well.
And help me out, what is a Sphinx? It's a body of a lion.
Yeah, so I think
human?
I think what his gibberish here is maybe alluding to is that a Sphinx is kind of a mashup of various things: human head, lion body, dragon wings. And Marwyn calls Alaris the Sphinx because he's kind of a mix of this and a mix of that. He's Dornish and Summer Islander, and we've talked in the spoiler discussion that there might be some other things going on with Alaris that might make him even more of a mashup. So my take on this, the Sphinx is the riddle, not the Riddler, is very, very vague. I think it suggests that something or someone that is complex in either their lineage or their motivation. And I do have a possible candidate that I'm going to bring up in spoilers But
Okay.
I really don't know who it is. But that's what I think. I think that's my best guess for what he means by.
That makes perfect sense. I'll look forward to that. So then the eggs that wouldn't hatch, well, that one seems obvious to me. There were 3 eggs that were petrified and no longer viable, but Dany hatched them.
Yeah, that could be very much. That could definitely be
What
what
do you
he
mean
means.
could
there.
be? What
Well,
else is there?
There's also a Targaryen tradition.
Stop having other ideas. Just tell me I'm right.
I think you very well could be right. Except for they did eventually hatch. But there's a Targaryen tradition where you put a dragon egg in the baby's cradle when they're born.
Yeah.
And they've done that since as far as we know, I think. But they kept doing it even after the last dragon died. It just became a tradition. They would put a dragon egg in with the
lumpy pillows.
Yes, and they wouldn't hatch. So maybe he was saying something about how those eggs wouldn't hatch. Okay. And now they have. So it still goes back to your idea.
Yeah. And then a candle that cannot be lit. Now, I didn't really know this one, but it rang a bell. There's something to do with Euron here, isn't there?
Well, so yeah, it goes back to the glass candles, right? The glass candles can't be lit. And here's what we know about glass candles from our text so far. At the Citadel, there are 4. 1 black, 3 green. Dany was told when she was in Karth, after the whole House of the Undying fiasco, that glass candles were burning in the house of Urathon Nightwalker for the first time in 100 years. And then in the prologue of this book, A Feast for Crows, Leo Tyrell says that the candle in Marwyn, who is an archmaester at the Citadel, in his study is burning. And really the other thing we know is that acolytes, they have to do a vigil in complete darkness with nothing but the glass candles before they graduate to becoming a maester. And the whole point of it is to prove that despite having knowledge, some things are still impossible. Well, apparently they're not impossible because the glass candles are lighting again. So, yeah, glass candles are lighting, dragons are hatching. I think it's, maybe they're related in some way.
Yeah, and so I mentioned Euron. You did not mention Euron, but Euron, there's speculation that Euron might be Urathon Nightwalker.
Yes, there is some.
But it's not confirmed.
Right. To my knowledge, it is not confirmed. But I think he's right. I think Maester Aemon is right about his idea that the Archmaesters have been discounting Maester Aemon's intel from the Wall because he's 102 years old. None of them know him,
Yes, none of them remember him, yeah.
Right. And he's sending things that go against what their scientific minds are telling them, But you would think that just general curiosity would have caused them to send a maester to investigate.
Maybe, yeah. But, yeah, it's easy to discount far-fetched stories from the fringes of society,
Yes, yeah. And we saw Maester Luwin's reaction to Jojen's ideas that he was putting in Bran's head. He completely discounted any of the ideas about warging or, prophetic dreams or anything like that. And Maester Luwin was one of the few maesters that had a Valyrian steel link, which is for those higher mystery type studies. And he was discounting it. So, but, we don't really know him. We've not met him yet. But I think Archmaester Marwyn seems like Sam's best bet. He's traveled to Essos. Mary Masdor mentioned that she studied anatomy under him. And Leo Tyrell, again, in the prologue, said that Marwyn believes that dragons really have hatched. And, he's got a lit glass candle in his study. So it seems like he's the kind of guy that might accept this.
So back to the sort of like the practicalities of this chapter, it does appear to me that Gilly appears to have rebounded from the debilitating depression that she was suffering on the first sea voyage and her time in Braavos.
Yes, very much.
I wonder if part of that is Maester Aemon's demise has distracted her from it. I also thought about how her baby must have looked a lot like Craster. I always imagine Craster to have sort of like a baby head. And so... And so Gilly's baby must have been like a constant reminder of that monster. And so having Dalla's baby instead of, Dalla's baby, right, would be something of a relief perhaps. But I'm being mean. But my thinking was that she's got herself out of that depression to a certain extent, it seems.
It definitely does feel that way. I mean, absolutely. The past 2 chapters, all she's done is cry. So... Yeah. That's definitely a departure from that. But I really like the names that they come up with for the baby. Aemon Battleborn or Aemon Steelsong, both based off of the fact that Dalla gave birth to the baby during the battle for the wall there.
And Aemon for Maester Aemon, of course. Sam thinks to himself, my God, those are names that my father would approve of,
Right.
They do sound pretty heroic, those names.
Yeah. He refers to the baby as Mance's son and Craster's grandson. I was kind of confused by that because this baby has nothing to do with Craster. And the baby that Gilly did give birth to was also Craster's grandson, but also his son.
Right.
So I was a little bit confused why he referred to this baby as Craster's grandson. But
I wonder if that's a pedantry or a mistake by Sam, or was Dalla an escapee from Craster's?
Yeah, there's no mention of that being a fact. So
Dalla was a beauty, right? Or was Val the beauty? Val's the beauty, okay.
Probably Dalla was too. I don't recall Dalla's description.
They were sisters.
Yeah.
Val and Dalla, yeah, okay. So if the two of them escape from Craster's... The thing is, I don't think of Craster's family as being particularly beautiful. Sort of like, again, I've got this sort of like, shriveled baby head thing going.
Oh, that image is cracking me up. But Sam thinks that he's, he and Gilly having sex... it makes him no better than Darren as far as breaking his vows.
He is.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely not true. Regardless of breaking his oath with Gilly, he did everything in his power to save Aemon and fulfill Jon's command, whereas Darren bailed on them at the first opportunity.
Yeah. Because he's racked with guilt, he tries to avoid her all day. Koja intervenes and gives him the ultimatum, which forces him back to Gilly. And I think Koja's comments are valid, that Gilly understands that this can never be, but there's the now, and she wants him in the now. And
I think you're right. I think Koja is right, and Gilly does know these things. It's just her mentioning that I'm your wife now probably really threw Sam for a loop after the fact, because that's like the one thing he is specifically not allowed to do is take, you're not allowed to father children. There's no guarantee that he's going to father a child off of this one act. And you're not allowed to take a wife. That one he has more control over, Right. So I think that's where he was really upset about, is the fact that she said, "You're my wife now," and he could only respond with yes.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but he spelled it out to her. What Koja thinks Gilly believes, he spelled it out directly to Gilly, and Gilly wiped away his tears and essentially told him, "Don't worry about that now."
Yeah, there's no trees around.
Exactly.
Speaking of Koja Mo, so she's the captain's daughter, and Sam tells us that she's also the leader of the archers on the ship, and that she and their archers saved the ship from pirates near the Stepstones. And that reminded me of last chapter when that Giscari ship, I think it was a Giscari ship, said that their captain had died escaping Salador San in the Stepstones. So I'm wondering, maybe Salador was the pirate they were trying to escape here as well. There's probably a lot of pirates around the Stepstones, or traditionally have been, but could have been Salador again. And she also uses a gold heart bow, which is, just as an aside, the same type of bow that Alaris used in the prologue. Remember, he was shooting apples. he was having someone throw apples and then he would, hit him with an arrow.
And was part Summer Islander, right?
Yes, and Goldenheart is a tree found in the Summer Islands. And yeah, Larys's mother was a Summer Islander, so I just thought, there's a little connection there.
We're going to skip over the section we've got here for a future date, perhaps, but because just for brevity. But I'm reading a writer called Percival Everett, who I highly recommend to everyone.
Okay,
very, very interesting.
All
and
right.
Made me think about the representation of the Summer Islanders here. We'll come back to this topic one day.
Okay,
but for now, let's move to spoilers. This chapter seems rich for them. If you want to hear the spoilers, join us, the Buy Me a Coffee Sustainers at one of the upper tiers, and you can get in on this action. That's excellent. Thank you, Mackelly. Now, get back to work. Background.
I've been talked out at this point. I need a breather here. So, the Cinnamon Wind, the ship that they're on right now, and her crew hail from the Summer Isles, which I think we've made pretty clear in this episode. The Summer Isles is an archipelago well south of Dorne of about 50 plus islands located approximately where the Sunset Sea turns into the Summer Sea, or vice versa, depending on which direction you're traveling, I guess. But the Isles have a long history of habitation dating back thousands of years, and we've talked a little bit about the details and history of the Summer Isles, and much of their history is recorded on the talking trees of Tall Trees Town, which is a town in the Summer Isles. The Summer Islanders actually lived in isolation for a large portion of their recorded history, thinking that they were alone in the world. It actually wasn't until a Giscari merchant ship was blown off course and landed on the island of Willano about 5,000 to 8,000 years ago. That's when they realized that they weren't alone. And from that point on, the Summer Islanders began to build bigger ships to carry them further out into the wide world. Lucky for them, they first encountered the peaceful people of Noth to the east of them. And as they became more comfortable out in the world, they even tried to establish a few colonies on the coast of Sothorios. However, those proved unsuccessful. Before long, the Summer Islanders were part of the larger trade network. Some actually believe that the port that is now Old Town might have originally been a trading post for sailors and merchants from places like Valeria and Old Gis and the Summer Isles during the dawn age of Westeros.
That seems strange to me because it's on the west coast of Westeros.
Yeah.
You'd think that
right.
would be on the east coast of Westeros.
Yeah, you would, because there's not much else further west, but, know.
So comparison. Thank you for the background. Comparison
Certainly.
with the television show. I'll go slow to give your voice a break. Okay? Maester Aemon dies at the wall. His final words in his bed at the wall are, "Egg, I dreamt I was old." Then Sam's eulogy, as I mentioned, is almost verbatim, but that's as they light the pyre at Castle Black. There's no. We've skipped over it, but they stuff him in a rum barrel to preserve his body because Sam wants his body burned.
We did skip over that, yes.
Yeah, but Maester Aemon does get burned in the TV show. That same day, Gilly is attacked in Castle Black, but defended by Sam and Ghost. Jon is away for a reason. Sam gets badly beaten in that attack, and later, while they're tending his wounds, Gilly and Sam do more than kiss, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
There are definitely trees nearby.
There would be. Yes, there would be.
This attack on Gilly is why she's sent with Sam from the wall. With Dalla dropped, there needed to be another reason found to send her with Sam. And this attack was the premise, was the justification for that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Pedantry Corner. There was a typo in my book. At least I think it was a typo. Correct me if I'm wrong here.
It's in mine too. Yep.
You found it as well? You saw the same one?
After you told me, after you put it in here, I went and looked. It is indeed.
Yeah. So Dalla just one time became Dana. Koja is bouncing the baby on her knee, and it's referred to as Dana's baby.
Yep.
Now, for most people, like I'm sure yourself, you were like, oh, that's an interesting typo. I might mention it in pedantry. For me, I spent like 10 minutes going, who the hell is Dana?
Where did this Dana character come from? Dana?
Dana? So, yes.
It's a very contemporary name.
I know. How weird.
Yeah. The only thing, I mean, if we want to consider Sam calling Dalla's boy Craster's grandson, I guess could be considered pedantry. Or maybe he's
wrong.
He is wrong. Yeah, he is.
Yeah. All right, news and notes. Just a reiteration, we had a fantastic time on the Discord call with our Discord members. It is great to connect with them. You're a really nice group of people, and it's a lot of fun to be friends with you.
That's right. We did this one in celebration of our 5th year anniversary for this show. If you were on the call and you liked it, or if it sounds interesting to you, we do these types of calls quite regularly with our certain levels of our sustainer tier on Buy Me a Coffee. So if you have any interest in joining more, I suggest you go check us out, and we'd love to have you and chat.
Yeah. All right, let's conclude this one. So, hooray for Gilly and Sam.
Sure.
A little bit of me always wanted them to get together. Uh-huh. And just a boo for stupid vows that keep them apart. Right. And very much salt tears for the passing of Maester Aemon, who truly was one of the good characters in this book. There aren't many who everyone could agree on, but Maester Aemon, I think, was one of them.
I agree, absolutely. And there's lots of treeless sea left. So, and there was no trees in Braavos either, by the way. That's like something that is mentioned about Braavos. There's no trees on Braavos.
Well, so they've been wasting time.
I know, right? But, speaking of a lot of treeless sea left, if they continue this, might there be a pregnancy concern? Unless, maybe they have access to moon tea or...
Mm-hmm. I think there's definitely a chance, as I understand it.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that really would be a violation of Sam's vows. So, just have to see how that goes, I guess.
I'm English, so it's pure speculation, but I believe that could happen. So, Rhaegar Targaryen concluded that he wasn't the prince who was promised, after believing it to be so for a while. But if it was his child, baby Aegon, who he thought it would be because he was conceived while a comet was in the sky, that did not come to much of a fruition. Baby Aegon was bludgeoned to death by Amory Lorch, the Mountain, one of those two.
Right, yeah. Could have, obviously it wasn't baby Aegon, unless it was, and that goes back to the whole prophecy discussion that we had earlier. But one... relative of his does check an awful lot of boxes, and that's Daenerys. She checks pretty much all of them. So,
Yeah. And the gender ambiguity is the one part that we couldn't overlook before because it was the prince who was promised, but now Aemon's given us a reason to believe that might have been more ambiguous than we thought, and therefore Dany, the last obstacle is dropped.
Yeah, right. So she fits. No, she fits better than anyone else has that we've come across anyway. So
perhaps Melisandre should bring her fake burning sword to Dany.
Right. Dany has real fire-breathing dragons, though. So
exactly,
it might be
I agree
better.
That's a much better burning sword.
Yeah.
And next week we visit the always interesting Cersei Lannister.
Yeah.
Not always nice, but always interesting.
She gets good news. To her. And I won't say anything more than that, but you're going to want to tune in and find out. Remember how last week I said you don't want to miss this week? You don't want to miss next week.
All right. That's the way to go. Well, there's 3 ways that you can help us. You could leave us a positive review. We'll happily read them out. You can buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostharrenhal. There you can join us at any of the various sustainer levels. The upper ones get you the spoiler section, and they get you invites to every one of our sustainer calls. There's a tier that would match your budget and your interest. Or you can just make a donation directly to our cause at ghostsofharrenhal.buzzsprout.com.
And if you're looking for more ways to interact with us, well, one way you can do it is you can send us a text these days. The link is in the top of every episode's show notes. If you're looking to keep up on the latest Ghosts of Harrenhal news and developments, well, I suggest you go out and check us out on our social medias. You can follow us on Twitter at Ghost Harrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram. Obviously, we're on Discord and YouTube.
But apparently not TikTok, right? Is what we heard on the Discord.
That's right, not TikTok.
Okay, thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.